Welcome to the Human Experience Podcast, the only podcast designed to fuse your left and right brain hemispheres and feed it the most entertaining and mentally engaging topics on the planet. As we approach our ascent, please make sure your frontal, temporal and occipital lobes are in their full upright position. As you take your seat of consciousness, relax your senses and allow us to take you on a journey. We are the Intimate Strangers. Thank you for listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We have planned an incredible episode for you guys this evening. We are going to be looking at the mechanisms of how exactly the brain works on a neurological, psychological, and physiological level in regards to creating the life that we want. The book we're going to be covering is called Innercise, The New Science to Unlock Your Brain's Hidden Power. Written by John Assaraf, our guest for tonight. This is going to be a highly informative and entertaining show. It's usually pretty entertaining around here, right guys? So sit back, grab a drink, relax, and enjoy this conversation. The Human Experience is in session. My name is Xavier Katana. My guest for tonight is Mr. John Assaraf. John Assaraf is a behavioral and mindset expert and New York Times bestselling author who helps people realize their potential for success by working with their brains rather than against them. John is the CEO and founder of Neurogym, a company that uses the latest technologies and scientific research to help you achieve the success that you want in life. John has built 5 multi-million-dollar companies, wow, and has been featured in USA Today, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal. He's appeared on Larry King, the Ellen DeGeneres Show, and in The Secret Movie, and now The Human Experience. John, it is a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time to be here. Welcome to HXP.
Thank you so much. And I'm so excited to be sharing hopefully some pearls of wisdom that people can start to apply in their lives right away.
Yeah, I mean, you've got such an amazing story, and I'd love to get into that. But I mean, briefly, why don't you just tell us who you are, what you do, please?
Well, what I do now is very, very different than what I did during my career, and especially when I was younger. Now I'm into brain research and designing and developing programs for people to be able to strengthen their mindset and their emotional resiliency. And that is for the sole purpose so that they can let go of what's in their way and they can start achieving more of their goals and dreams. Now, it didn't always start off that way. I went to school in Montreal, Canada. I hated it, left school in grade 11, and got into a lot of trouble with the law and did a lot of unethical things, unprofessional things. And my life changed in 1 minute when I answered one question that was asked to me by a man that I had never met before, but my brother had arranged for me to have lunch with him. And at the time, I was working in the shipping department of a computer company, making like $2 an hour, something like that. And I was miserable, selling drugs on the side to make more money so I could have fun. And I went from Montreal, Canada to Toronto, Canada to see my brother and this gentleman for lunch. I took the train. And at lunch, this man said to me, what goals do you have for your life? And I said, well, my goal is to make enough money this week to be able to, buy a little bit of food, have a little bit of fun with my friends. And that's about it. That's my goal. He said, but what goal do you have for, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And I said to him, his name was Mr. Alan Brown. I said, I never even thought about it. Mm-hmm. I'm just living day to day, paycheck to paycheck, just trying to make ends meet. And that was it. And so he gave me these documents, and he called them his goal-setting documents. And it asked questions like, what age do you want to retire by? How much net worth do you want to have? Where do you want to travel? What kind of car do you want? What kind of home do you want? And it was broken up into different categories for health, wealth, relationships, career, business, fun, experiences, charity. And I had never, ever thought of those things. I was 19 years old at the time. And so I wrote down, a bunch of, for the most part, bullshit of what I wanted to achieve, because I was just using imagination and dreaming based on what I've seen on television.
Right.
And when I gave him the documents, he said, this is actually pretty good. He says, you've got a lot of big goals and dreams. And then he asked me the question that changed my life. And he said to me, he said, John, he says, are you interested in achieving these goals, or are you committed? And I looked up at him and I said, what do you mean, Mr. Brown? He says, well, if you're interested, you're going to do what's easy and what's convenient. He says, if you're interested, you're going to use the story that you only went to grade 11 in high school, that you're getting into trouble with the law, that your father went to grade 5, your mother went to grade 3, and all the other stories and excuses you've been telling me as to why you're doing what you're doing and why you're getting the results you're getting. He says, if you're committed, however, you will let go of all of your stories and excuses. You will stop fucking around. He says, and you'll develop the beliefs, the knowledge, the skills, and the habits required to achieve every one of those goals. And he went on to say, I've achieved way more than every one of those goals that you have there. And I can tell you they're doable. So are you interested, or are you committed? And so I looked at him and I said, well, I guess I'm committed. He says, good. Then the first thing I'd like you to do is accept my offer to be your mentor. And I go, excuse me? He says, accept my offer to be your mentor. I says, oh, okay, great. I accept. And he shook my hand. He says, great. The next thing I want you to do is go back to Montreal and move here to Toronto. I said, move to Toronto? I don't know anybody here. I don't have any money. I don't have an apartment. I don't have a car. He says, are you interested, or are you committed? I said, well, I'm committed, but he says, there's no buts when you're committed. So I said, okay, I'll move to Toronto. And he says, great. He says, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to enroll in the real estate class that starts on May the 5th. This was April of 1980, just to give people perspective. And he said, I want you to enroll in the real estate course that starts on May 5th. And I go, real estate course? I don't have any money to go to the real estate course. I hate school. I didn't do well. They kicked me out. I left in grade 11. He says, are you interested, or are you committed? He says, you got to stop this way of behaving. I said, but I don't have any money to enroll in real estate school. He says, well, make the commitment first. You'll figure out how to get the money. So I said, fine, I'll do it. And so long story short, after I said I was committed, after he said he'll mentor me, after I said I'll move to Toronto from Montreal, not knowing a soul, after I didn't have money, I figured out how to get the money. I moved from Montreal to Toronto. My brother let me stay with him, and I enrolled in real estate school May 5th, 1980. I took classes from 9 to 5 every day for 5 weeks. And I remember this like it was yesterday for one simple reason. On June 20th, 1980, I passed my real estate test. And the reason I remember is because it was the first time in years I didn't cheat to pass a test. And so that was the beginning of understanding the difference between commitment and interest. And then he started to train me, to teach me, to mentor me every day. He had me working to upgrade my knowledge and my skills. And I made $30,000 my first year working with him. And to put into perspective, my father, who was a cab driver, made $25,000. And then he kept upgrading my knowledge and my skills and my resolve and my habits. And I made $151,000 when I was 20 years old. And that was the beginning of my life's transformation, is understanding the power of a decision backed by action.
I mean, wow, that's such an incredible, sort of origin story, with this person, Alan, that decided to take you under his wing and mentor you, and give you that sort of direction that's so crucial. And at such a young age, too. You were 19. So
19, yeah.
I mean, it could have gone either way for you, right?
Well, the answer is yes, because I was either on my way to jail or the morgue. One of my friends had already died. Another one was already in jail. We were part of a little street gang that, as I mentioned before, did things that, got us into quite a bit of trouble. And so if I imagine where I was heading, it really wasn't to a good place. And I was picking up speed because I was getting a little bit older. And so it was getting very, very, very dangerous. And fortunately for me, my brother introduced me to this man, and I accepted his offer to be mentored by him and to get help.
Okay. So, I've got Innercise here in my hand, and I read it last night, and, I've underlined it. I just ripped through it. And there's something at the very beginning of the book that you mentioned that I want to cover for sure. In the intro, we talked about how, you've built these highly successful companies, 5 of them. And, in the book, you mentioned that the material success was, there was a reality to that. It wasn't everything. There was a hell to sort of pay for that. I mean, can you talk more about, what that immediate material success led to for your life?
Yeah, it almost killed me. Sex, drugs, rock and roll. I had money and I overindulged in things. I worked so many hours. When I was younger, my family had enough money for a roof over our head and food on the table, but not enough for more. And I always felt less than other kids. I didn't feel as smart as other kids. I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel worthy enough. I didn't feel smart enough. And so once I started making some money, I started indulging and abusing my physical body. And, I ended up with severe ulcerative colitis when I was 22 years old. I ended up, drinking way too much alcohol, and just really burning the candles on all ends of the spectrum.
Wow.
I was divorced twice. I've been with my wife Maria now for 20 years, and I've got 2 amazing kids. But for many years there, it was just a life of excess, and I didn't know how to handle the success. And parts of it were great, but other parts of it were very, very challenging. Nobody had ever taught me the skill of managing money, the skill of investing, the skill of protecting, the skill of using debt properly. I was taught how to make a lot of money, but it really affected who I was and who I became until I was able to really get some. And again, I've just been a student of learning and trying to learn as much as I can from other people's research, other people's experiences, the ones that they love and are constructive ones, and also the amount of lessons you can learn from the destructive results that either you get or somebody else has had. And so I've just been a voracious student for many, many years. And sometimes you have to hit rock bottom in order to climb back up. And although I never hit total rock bottom, I was getting pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting story. I really, resounding that you've gone through these highs and lows, and we're going to get into Innercise. But
Sure.
what do you think it was for you back then? Do you think it was a lack of discipline? Do you think it was? I mean, you mentioned a little bit, but I mean, what do you think was the weakest point for you through that period?
Without question, my self-image. I was very, very disciplined. And one of the things I talk about in the book and I teach is every human being is 100% disciplined. And a lot of people say, I don't have discipline. Yes, you do. You are 100% disciplined to your thoughts, to your emotions, to your behaviors, to your existing results. Now, you may not like them, but don't confuse them that you are disciplined to either take action or not take action, to waste time or not waste time. That is a discipline. A lot of people think that disciplines are only positive disciplines, and they're not. You can have disempowering disciplines. You are disciplined to watch TV for 3 or 4 or 5 hours a night. You're disciplined to start a book and not finish it. You're disciplined, whatever behaviors that are a combination of your thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations, behaviors, and results that you have, you are 100% disciplined to achieve that. And the key, and one of the reasons I wrote this new book about the brain and about really taking control of it, is we have to learn how to change using the latest brain research to make change easier. Not easy, because it's not easy, but there are ways to make it easier when you understand a little bit about the different circuits in the brain that turn on or off as a result of either external or internal cues. Then you could be much more proactive in changing your thoughts or emotions or behaviors. And that is really what I wanted to share. You can have the best laid plans in the world, the greatest desires, goals, and dreams in the world. But if you don't know how to manage and master your own inner game, you will never achieve those goals.
For sure. For sure. So, okay, let's get into it. So, Innercise, you talk about the way that our brains have evolved, and you talk about, namely setting versus achieving goals. And there's something, a difference between how we set and how we achieve those goals. And then you relate that to the two different priorities of our brain and how that might be sort of interfering with our attempts at success. So what are the two routes to this? And tell us about this.
Sure. So everybody, if I can have everybody who's listening to us right now, just imagine that you're part of a band or an orchestra, whichever you prefer, your favorite band or an orchestra. There's somebody who plays, let's say, the guitar, somebody who plays the piano, somebody may play the trumpet and the piano. So let's say there's 4 members of the group. What we know about the brain is that there are different parts of the brain that are responsible for different aspects of whether it's emotions, whether it's behavior, whether it's motivation, whether it's happiness or sadness. There's different parts to our brain. And so we know that there's a part of our brain called the left prefrontal cortex, or what I prefer to call is the Albert Einstein part of our brain. It's over your left eye, behind your skull. It's the LFP, left prefrontal cortex. And this part of your brain's responsibility is to imagine what you would love to have, to choose this or that, and come up with all the reasons why you want it. So it is responsible for that. That's Albert Einstein. Now, there's another part of your brain that I call is Frankenstein. And Frankenstein, as soon as Albert Einstein has all of these great ideas, Frankenstein's responsibility is to go into your memory bank and say, okay, hey, every time you have thought about this, or every time you've read about this or have seen this, what could go wrong? What pain looms, just in front of you? Like, could you get physically hurt? Could you get emotionally hurt? Could you get financially hurt? Could you get spiritually hurt? And so Frankenstein brings up almost in nanoseconds all the reasons why you shouldn't go ahead. So imagine Albert Einstein's got his foot on the gas, but Frankenstein's got his foot on the brake, and you want to achieve these goals. And you're wondering, why the F am I not taking action? Why am I procrastinating? And the answer is because you haven't gotten Frankenstein to set aside to allow Albert Einstein and the motor cortex and the motivational center of your brain to activate the behavior necessary in order to achieve that goal. And then, even when you do think of doing that, and you move Frankenstein over to the side, another part of your brain says, hey, but what happens if you do this and you fail? Then will you be embarrassed? Will you be ashamed? Will you be ridiculed? Will you be judged by your sibling, mother, brother, sister, coworker? And as soon as the fear center activates, then you go, oh, you know what? Maybe I should just go get an ice cream or watch Netflix show that I really want. Let me be safe there.
Right.
And so there's several different parts of our brain that we know will work for us and others that activate to protect us. And so when we understand the hierarchy of the brain, the evolution of this organism, your brain is not an organ, it's a living, breathing, developing organism. And what I mean by that is this. Number one for this organism is safety above all else. Right? So if there's anything that you're thinking of doing or want to do, and there's any type of potential or real danger, brakes go on.
Sure.
Stress levels go up. And so safety first. Second is energy conservation. So if what you want to do requires additional energy that is different than your habitual way of being, brakes go on again because your brain doesn't want to use this energy. So you have to override the fear center or stress center. You have to override this energy conservation center. And the way you do that is now you bring online the emotional center, the limbic part of our brain, which is the second part of our brain to develop. And you go, okay, yes, I know that there is some potential danger. Yes, I know that's going to require energy. And then when you ask yourself, why must I achieve this? Like, why must I? Like, what will happen to me if I don't? Who will I become if I don't? What will I feel if I don't? What if I don't give this my best shot? So you can use negative consequences of not taking action, and then you can shift your emotion and go, okay, now when I do take action, and I grow, I become more, I learn, I evolve, I achieve some successes, then is that what I want? And when the answer is yes, 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 then we start to override this protective mechanism in our brain. And the motor cortex starts to rev up its engines, and the nucleus accumbens and insulin in the brain, the dopamine, feel-good neurochemicals activate. And then we get a little burst of adrenaline with dopamine, and we start taking action. Then, holy shit, it's exciting, it's scary at the same time. But now we're in action, doing the thing that scares us, doing the thing that maybe is a little bit risky. But to do all of this, you have to use the one key that every human has access to, but very few practice, and that's awareness. Is awareness of my thoughts, awareness of my results and what causes them, awareness of my emotions that are triggering these feelings that I don't know what to do with. And when we become aware of thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations, and behaviors or lack of behavior, then we can shift, and I call that, anyway, then we can shift into what is it that I really, really want to do? Do I want to retreat into safety? Do I want to procrastinate? Do I want to be afraid my whole life? Or do I want to step into my potential and my greatness and my abilities? And almost every person says, I want to do the latter. I want to step into my greatness. Can you show me how? And then we can say, great, of course we can show you how, because every single result that every person that's listening to right now wants to achieve, somebody's already done it. So the how-to is the least of your problems.
Interesting. Yeah, I love the way that you spelled that out. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
But, from what I understand, it's almost as if your brain is wired to keep you in the sense of a comfortable place. It's a defense mechanism, it's a survival mechanism, and that's how we are wired. So, when we put ourselves into this place of risk or into this place of something new, when we're moving outside of our comfort zone, it becomes like this sort of trigger. It triggers this fear, and that is a wall that we just sort of slam into. So, using my analogy, how do we train our brains to sort of see that wall, understand that wall, and then get past it?
Sure. So the first Innercise that I teach in the book has a lot to do with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system in the brain. So when we're under stress, and our brain identifies stress as any time we're out of our comfort zone. So just to give people a visual, imagine that the room that you're in or the car that you're in while you're listening, there's a temperature setting for whatever you set it at, 70 degrees, 68 degrees, 72 degrees, or 22 degrees Celsius, depending on where you are in the world. Let's say you have it at a certain setting. That's the comfort zone that is set. Anytime there's a deviation, if there's hot air or cold air that comes into that room or environment, the electrical system, sends a signal. It's called a cybernetic mechanism. There's a signal that is sent to the nervous system to either turn on the air or turn on the heat because the comfort zone has been penetrated. And so whenever we step out of our comfort zone, our signal goes off as well, like a light on a dashboard of a car. Our signal just goes off, and it goes off in the way that most people aren't used to dealing with, and that is in the form of a feeling. So when our signal goes off, we'll usually feel a little bit anxious. Epinephrine, cortisol, or norepinephrine has been released into the bloodstream as a signal that you are out of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. It could be financial comfort zone, emotional comfort zone. It could be a guy wanting to ask a girl to have a drink with him at a bar, or vice versa for a girl to a guy, or a guy to a guy and girl to a girl, of course. So anytime we're out of our comfort zone, this automatic release of neurochemicals is sent through our bodies. Now, the average person tries to suppress them or distract themselves from these feelings.
Right.
As opposed to that they run away. So Innercise number 1 is to calm the circuit from the sympathetic nervous system, the stress and reactive circuit in the brain, to the calm and respond circuit in the brain. So the greatest gift we have is awareness. And awareness gives us choice, but most people have not practiced their awareness skill, but they know how they feel. So the first lesson that I teach people, the first Innercise, is if you just stopped and took 6 deep breaths in through your nose slowly, and then out through your mouth as if you're blowing through a straw for 6, 7, 8 seconds, really, really slowly. Just 6 breaths deactivates that stress reactive center in your brain. So that is step 1.
So why don't we do that right now?
Let's do it. Everybody, all right?
Yeah, how about please, everyone that's listening, why don't you, participate, and we can do that right now.
Perfect. So it doesn't matter if you're driving or you're just sitting at your desk. Stop whatever you're doing except driving, all right, and take a deep breath slowly in through your nose. Your eyes can be open, it's perfect, or closed. And then as you're breathing it out through your mouth, gently, gently, gently pucker your lips like you're blowing it out through a straw. And just focus on the airflow going out of your lips. And then breathe in again. And then out slowly, slowly, slowly. And just feel how calm you're getting. And let's do that 2 more times. Breathe in through your nose. And out through your mouth at your own pace. The slower, the better. Mm-hmm. And the more focus you can have on the inflow coming in through your nose and the outflow going through your mouth as if you're blowing out through a straw, the quicker you deactivate the stress and reactive state. So what happens is when we are stressed out or fearful or worried or anxious or in panic, the first thing we want to do is deactivate the stress center because it shuts down the thinking center of the brain. We can see in fMRI studies, functional magnetic resonance imaging studies, blood flow leaving the thinking, imagination, genius part of your brain away from there to the stress centers of your brain. So the first thing we want to do is let's get calm so we can choose and respond. So in this calm, relaxed state, you bring on that Einstein part of your brain back online. And then if you do Innercise number 2, it's called AYA, A-I-A.
Okay.
And AYA stands for awareness. Awareness of what are my thoughts, feelings, sensations, and what have my behaviors been, or what are my behaviors right now? And is this what I want? Are these thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations, behaviors going to move me towards the goals that I want to achieve or away from them? Or am I going to be recreating the exact same goals as I have for the last month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? Or am I focusing on the new goals that I want? And when you're doing this inner size of awareness, you must, and I repeat, you must do it without judgment, blame, shame, guilt, or justification. No judgment, blame, shame, guilt, or justification. Just pure awareness, because what we're actually experiencing is history. We're looking at what happened before we were aware. And that gives us an insight to the I, because the I in Aya is, now what's my intention now that I'm aware? Well, my intention is to be happy. My intention is to be refocused on my goals. My intention is to take action and go and ask that girl, if she'd like to chat a little bit. My intention is to leave my job and find one that I love. My intention is to start this business. My intention is to write this book. My intention is to finish this paper. My intention is fill in the blank. And then the only thing you need to do next, which is the third A, or the second A in Aya, AIA, is what is one small, easy step you can take towards that intention. Not what's 5 steps, not 10, not 3, 1. And the reason we want to do 1 is we don't want to reactivate the fear or emotional center in our brain that may cause us to revert back to our comfort zone. What we want to do is start to become more aware. We want to start setting our intentions deliberately, and then we want to develop the habit of taking the actions we know will help us achieve our goals deliberately, so that we develop this new habitual pattern of being in control. And what happens is when you develop this neuro muscle of self-confidence, of awareness, of intention, and of behavior, then you are able to achieve every goal that you want to achieve.
Okay. So John, let's rewind a little bit, and I'm getting some feedback about the exercise, and one of the questions, and something that I'm wondering as well, like when you're in that panic state, it's sometimes difficult to really slow down because everything seems like it's moving so fast. It's difficult sometimes to remember to just, stop and breathe. It's something that simple, So how can we kind of train ourselves to be better at in the moment while
Great question. Great question. So I want you to imagine that you want to become a Navy SEAL. Just pretend for just a moment you want to become a Navy SEAL. Well, sure, you have to have the physical stamina and abilities. Of course you do. But you also have to have the emotional and the mental abilities too, right? Well, what if I shared with everybody that's listening right now that awareness is a skill you can get better at? Managing your emotions are skills you can get better at. Focusing your mindset is a skill you can get better at. And the reason I'm using the Navy SEALs as an example is many years ago when the Navy SEALs were putting people through the Navy SEAL training, there was one part of the training that most Navy SEALs failed. And that was their final test when they went underwater, fully geared up with all of their scuba equipment, with 3 instructors who shut off their air, played with their mask, pulled their BC unit off of them if they could, took the regulators out of their mouth. And basically what happens in a state of panic, you just bolt right up to the top of the water.
Sure.
And as a Navy SEAL or an astronaut or a firefighter or a police officer, you can't do that. Because not only will you die, but other people may die. And what they realized was that when they panicked, most people will divert back to their training. So they trained these Navy SEALs before their final test on how to have mental and emotional control so that when they felt this incredible surge to panic and bolt up to the top of the surface, they would actually start to breathe and calm themselves down. Now, they started to practice this every day. They started to practice a little bit of breathing and awareness every hour for 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. They used mental contrasting, a technique that we teach in our book, Innercise, where you can actually put yourself in the most stressful situations in your mind. Feel the surge of that cortisol and epinephrine and norepinephrine, and then calm yourself down. And if you just took 3 minutes or 2 minutes every hour to practice and to become more aware, you would build this neuromuscle of awareness. You would build this neuromuscle of control. You'd build this neuromuscle of focus. You'd build this neuromuscle of confidence, and then you'd be able to do it for yourself. Now, I'll share a story with you that may help.
Sure.
My wife just had her, unfortunately, second back surgery in 6 months, 6 weeks ago. And there was a complication when they did one of the procedures. And about 30 days ago, after the third surgery was done, she had to have 2 surgeries in one. She panicked here at the house. And I was in a meeting in my home office with somebody. She says, "Hey, honey, can you come upstairs? I need to talk to you." I said, "Sweetheart, can it wait?" She goes, "No, honey. I need to go to the hospital right now." And when I walked upstairs, her eyeballs looked like they were coming out of her head. And she says, "I need to go to the hospital right now." I said, "Okay, great. Do you trust me?" She goes, "Yes." Then look straight into my eyes and breathe with me, just 6 breaths, and then I'll talk to you. She goes, "Okay." So we did the 6 breaths. She went from a level 10 panic, take me to the hospital right now, down to an 8, 7, 6, 5. At 5, I said, "What's going on?" She told me that she couldn't feel her left leg. She thought that maybe she had a blood clot. I said, "Great, let's do another 6 breaths." We did that. By the time we got to 3 and 2, she was calm enough for us to call the doctor who did the surgery. And why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because first you learn how to do it for yourself, and you can do it with others. This is all about emotional control. We don't get into a panic state unless our brain has run away with what if questions and loops. So what if I have a blood clot? What if I die? What if I get into an accident? What if I fall? What if I break my leg? What if I lose this? We don't get into panic before we're in a state of anxiety. So when we're in a state of anxiety, we can become aware of our feelings, but you have to practice becoming aware of these feelings. The only thing that a feeling tells us is that our emotional center has released a chemical. So we can have feelings of happiness, sadness, shame, guilt, fear. All it tells us is there is a neurochemical reaction that's happened. Some of it I love, others, I just don't like this feeling. And left unchecked, it exacerbates from anxiety to panic.
Right.
And so panic doesn't go from 0. I mean, listen, if you are on an airplane, like just happened a few days ago on one of the Delta flights, and it dropped 30,000 feet in less than 6 minutes, you are going into panic unless you're the pilot who's been trained under those circumstances.
Okay. So the way that I was imagining this was kind of being at the gym. Like you're not instantly going and lifting heavy weights. You're slowly building up to that point.
Correct.
And so to me, it's like before you get into that state of panic or even anxiety, you're practicing these techniques before that happens, and you're training yourself to bring yourself back to center. You're breathing. You're using this circuit, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about what do all professional athletes and musicians do before performance time? They practice. Well, when did we learn as humans to practice getting connected to our awareness muscle, our emotional muscles, our feelings? When did we practice? If you asked a Hollywood actor or actress to change from one emotional state to another, could they do it?
I would say yes.
Yeah, in a nanosecond, because
Right.
they've practiced thousands and thousands and thousands of times.
Right.
We haven't been taught what are our core emotions. What are the ones, that motivate us to take actions? What are the ones that hold us back? Why? What's happening in my brain that's causing this disempowering state that I don't want to take action on a goal that I want to achieve? Right? There's something going on in the brain between the goal and the behavior. And what we are missing and lacking is an understanding of here's what's going on, here's why, it's perfectly normal, here's what to do about it so that I have more control, I have more personal power, and I'm able to take action and do the things that I know I should be doing and could be doing, and I actually want to do to enhance my life at every level.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like fear is such a big part of this, such a big part
It
of
is.
that first wall. And I mean, you
There's
mentioned
four
this
things.
in
Yeah,
the book.
there's four things. Yeah.
Go ahead. The obstacles. Go ahead and talk about that.
Well, there's 50 different types of known fears. There's actually more, but 50 main fears that every one of us deals with on a regular basis. But the four things that hold us back is, let's say you have a goal to make an extra $5,000 a month or $100,000 a month, or you want to write a book or start a business or leave a job or a person that you're not happy with. So there are four things that will usually get in our way. It's either one of four, two of four, three of four, it could be four of four. So number one, whenever we want to achieve something, it always is going to get bounced against our self-worth neuromuscle. Do I really believe deep down that I deserve that? Do I deserve that raise? Do I deserve that job? Do I deserve to have a successful business? Do I deserve that body? Do I deserve to lose weight and keep it off and draw attention to me? Do I deserve it?
Love that.
And if the answer is yes, then we're good on that one. But if there is any uncertainty, right? If there's any uncertainty, I don't know if I really deserve that. If there's any uncertainty, we trigger the fear center. And the fear center is, if I go after it and I achieve it and then I fail, then I'm going to disappoint myself and I might be embarrassed, ashamed, ridiculed, or judged. So why the hell even try?
Yeah.
Right? So that could be a circuit that's activated that deactivates motivation. We just don't do it. And we're not even aware that we're not doing it because of those reasons. Let's say we want to achieve a goal. And we have a fear of failure because we haven't learned that failure is feedback versus failure is me and my identity. So when we haven't learned how to frame fear in a positive way, or failure in a positive way, then failure may have a negative connotation in our subconscious mind. And why the hell would I want to feel the emotions of failure and disappoint myself or my spouse or brother or sister or mother or father or business partner? I don't want to fail because I have a negative meaning to it. What if I have a fear of succeeding and losing my friends, or succeeding and then failing? What if I have a fear of being judged? What if when I was a kid, I got up in class and answered a question and I gave the wrong answer, and a few of my friends who I played with in the schoolyard ridiculed me for getting the wrong answer? Do you really think I want to step up in a team meeting and give an answer? No. And so self-esteem, self-worth is one. Fear is another one. What about limiting beliefs? What about if, I'm too young to do that. I'm too old to do that. I'm too Asian or Caucasian. Do you know the small town that I live in? Do you know how old I am? It's too late for me to do this. So when we have limiting beliefs, now they are the lens by which we see the world. Now they are the drivers of what we do or don't do. because we are driven more by our beliefs than by our desires. And so if I have limiting beliefs, why would I ever override a limiting belief? If I don't have a structure for understanding that beliefs and fears and self-esteem are nothing more than patterns in our brain that have been reinforced from the time we were born till now, and that we can actually change the neural networks and patterns and deactivate limiting beliefs, deactivate disempowering habits, deactivate self-esteem issues, deactivate the disempowering patterns using the new science of neuroplasticity. And we could be deliberate, we could be conscious, and we could be aware of how to do that. Now I'm being empowered and I can let go of the stuff that does not serve me anymore. We are in an era right now where we can have so much more power because we own the most powerful tool in the known universe, your brain, but it did not come with a user's manual.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote Innercise, is because I've been studying this for many, many, many years and using it in my own life and in the lives of tens of thousands of students of mine around the world that have participated in our, actually hundreds of thousands. And so we now know how to let go of traumas. We know how to let go of disempowering fears. We know how to activate motivation. We know how to feel better about ourselves. We know how to release depression or suppression that's holding us back. We couldn't be alive at a better time in our history, 107 billion inhabitants of Earth, and we get to bring forth everything we've learned to right now. The question, I'm going to come back to you. Are you merely interested in having a wonderful life, or are you committed because all the how-tos available to you now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's resounding, and I think everyone listening, I'm getting so many messages of people talking about how much this is all resonating for them, and for me as well. I get this way too, and I think. Do you think, John, that it also has to do with, this sort of creation mechanism of imagined fear, like the challenge between what is real and this sort of imagination part of our brain that is blowing out of proportion, what could happen?
Well, of course, our brain is a predictive machine. It's consistently predicting what could happen in the future with the veil of safety first, right? So think about this. A baby on the 20th floor of a hotel, if the window's open, does the baby know that it shouldn't crawl out the window? The answer is no, because it has zero references. Now, an adult knows that because they've read about it, seen it, heard it somehow, some way, maybe on television or in newspapers. And so you cannot be afraid of what you don't have a reference for in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So our brain is consistently, the biocomputer between your ears is consistently checking and balancing 400 billion bits of information per second from the outside world against what is in the memory bank within your neural circuits, trillions of neural circuits in nanoseconds, billionths of seconds, to check and balance information up to half a second before you're even aware of it, to let you know, is there real or imagined potential danger there?
Right.
And it sends you the signal anytime either one of those is met with a possibility in your brain. Now, the signal is made for you to be aware, not for you to stop and retreat and move back into safety. If you keep doing that, you will never have control. And if you never have control, then you will never be able to give yourself a command and follow through to completion at a very high level. You will always be managed by your fears and your emotions instead of you using your emotions to propel you forward. You can actually take the neurochemistry of fear and use it as fuel.
Yeah.
But
You're like a segue artist. That's exactly where I was going to go to next is, just shifting this. And my favorite part in your book was when, you talk about the 5 shifts of Innercise, and you talk about using fears as fuel for change, beliefs as empowering stories, using your mindset. Please continue. What were you going to say?
Well, whenever I feel fear now, I have learned that my brain's just giving me a signal to be aware of. And while that signal is going through my body, right, in the form of neurochemicals or electrical neurochemicals, I can actually use that extra energy to move towards my goal right after I've analyzed, is this fear real or imagined? And have I mitigated the risk that may be present? So when you feel fearful, or when you're aware that you keep procrastinating and you've taken the time to go, why am I procrastinating? Am I afraid of failing? Am I afraid of being embarrassed? Like, why am I procrastinating? What's the real reason I'm procrastinating? There's only 3 reasons we procrastinate. One is decisional, which means I just don't know what to do. So I have uncertainty and self-doubt, which is kicked in my fear center, which means I'm not going to take action. Okay, so decisional. So what do I need to learn? Whose help do I need in order to know what steps I need to take? Great, thank you, brain. You've just done a great job for me to make me aware that it's decisional. The other one is arousal. There are some people who don't take action because they get aroused and do it at the last minute. So that is another reason people may not take action. So arousal, decisional. Mm-hmm. And the other one has to do with self-esteem, self-worth, and not believing that we deserve it.
Right.
And so is the fear triggered because I really don't believe that I can or that I deserve it? And if that's the case, then I can say, okay, is this really true? Or is this an old pattern from my childhood that's rearing its ugly head, or even from my teens or even beyond that, that's rearing its ugly? Do I really not deserve this? Am I really going to allow the fear of failure to hold me back? And if the answer is yeah, I'm going to allow that to hold me back. So then you say, great, what do I need to do in order to mitigate the risk?
Okay.
Right? Then I can start to use my higher cortical functions of thinking instead of reacting. Now, a lot of people confuse thoughts with thinking. You have 50,000 random thoughts a day, 80-90% of which are disempowering negative ones. Now, they're just coming up from your memory bank, percolating up like little bingo balls, percolating up in those little machines. They just pop, 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 pop. And you can learn the skill of just being aware of them and letting them go, being aware of them, letting them go, being aware of them, letting them go, and then choosing the thoughts that you want. But when a serious thought pops up that could have either positive or disempowering ramifications, then in a calm, relaxed way, you can actually think. Mm-hmm. Is this real? Is this imagined? Is there real danger here? Or is this imagined danger because of my past, from my mother, father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, or whatever?
Right. Yeah.
Now we're elevating our humanity and our abilities. And I know some of this sounds complex, and it's complex if maybe it's the first or second time you've heard about it. But once you start to say, okay, I have a brain. I'm not my brain. I can use my brain. My brain's an organism, just like I have a hand and I have lungs and a heart, etc. It's an organism. It's mine. How do I start using my brain better? How do I upgrade my awareness? How do I become more aware of my thoughts and my emotions and my behaviors, my habits? And how do I deliberately start to strengthen my self-discipline, my belief systems, my habitual way of being? Mm-hmm. And that's skill building.
Yeah. And there's so much that we covered about the actual awareness part. And, let's get into the intention and then the action part, because I think that's a huge part of it. I mean, yes, okay, we're going to have these fears, and then eventually you're going to overcome them. Either you're going to, or they're going to overcome you. But eventually, hopefully, you're going to get to that point where you're just going to get tired of being afraid, right? And you're going to start to you're going to do something about it. So how do we get to a point where we're starting to take action on those goals?
I want to backtrack for just a second
Sure.
on something you said.
Okay.
And that is this: you are never, ever, 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 ever going to stop being afraid when you get out of your comfort zone. So just remember, fear is a safety mechanism that's there to serve you, not stop you. So what happens is you become unafraid for the next task at hand, the next goal that you achieve. And then that becomes your new comfort zone. So no differently than if you're a diver. You might start diving, off the edge of the pool. Then you go to the small diving board. Then you go up to the next diving board, the next one, the next one, the next one. Every time you go to a new level,
Right.
the fear center kicks in. And you just go, okay, thank you. I know what this is. That's perfect. So that's number one.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, so number two, the visual I want everybody to have is this. What are 3 simple, easy steps you can take towards any goal you have? Not 10, not 7. Give me 3 that you can say, okay, this is a little bit uncomfortable, but I can do it.
Okay.
So a lot of times people are looking for, how am I going to do all of this, right? That would be the equivalent of me taking, 50 people that are listening right now and saying, okay, I'm going to teach you how to become a high diver, and we're going to go up to, 100 feet, and we go, okay, let's start here. I'd have 100 people running away.
Yeah.
But if I said, all 100 of you, let's jump into the pool. And if you don't feel comfortable jumping in the pool, can you sit on the edge and then get in? And if you don't know how to swim, let me put a life jacket on you, then let's get in. And if you don't feel comfortable with that, let me get 2 instructors and a life jacket and a buoy to get you into the water. If I start you with just getting out of your comfort zone a little bit, I have stretched your abilities. And if I can repeat this with you for 100 days, now here's the magic number, everyone. It's actually 66, but I use 100. All the latest brain research shows that it takes about 66 days to create a new pattern in the brain that becomes a comfortable new pattern that starts to work without you even thinking about it. So if I want to lose weight, for example, and keep it off, or if I want to make more money, if I want to become better in sales, if I want to be better at communication or speaking, or whatever the case might be, if I can just do a little bit for 100 days, I will deactivate phase 1 of my fear center. Now, you could usually deactivate it way faster than that, but you can get comfortable with it with 100 days of a little bit of practice.
So there's no action small enough. So even if you can take a little bit of a step towards that goal, even if it's small, that is something. It moves you towards it.
Anything that is going to get you out of your current habitual way of being is what you want to do. And so you start off small. If you want to start flossing your teeth and you just haven't done it, start with flossing 1 tooth every day. If you want to start exercising, you can start with just getting your running shoes and put it next to your bed and do nothing other than that. And then put your running shoes on and then just go for a walk in your apartment or house and then just go outside. The habit is more important than the intensity at first.
Yeah.
And the science of habits is that whatever you do consistently and repeatedly with spaced repetition is the new habit that starts to develop that overrides a habit that's used to activating automatically without thought. So we can build empowering habits that override disempowering ones or weaker ones.
So you're repeating the behavior however small, added on to maybe your already existing habits until it
Absolutely.
becomes something that you're used to and normal for you.
Absolutely. So you can start, for example, let's say you have a self-esteem issue where you really don't feel you're deserving enough. If you just wrote out an affirmation that went something like this: I'm so happy and grateful for the fact that I am now starting to feel worthy of the success I want. I'm so happy and grateful for the fact that I am now starting to feel worthy of the success that I want. And if you just read that and looked in the mirror, put it up on your mirror in your bathroom, and do something that I call brush and prime. So as you're brushing your teeth, just read it and just see if you could just accept it. And you might have a hard time believing it the first day, the 5th day, the 10th day, the 20th day, the 30th day. But by the time 30, 60, 90 days come of you just reading it, and then maybe even starting to feel it a little bit, you'll have imprinted that little affirmation or declaration by reading it, feeling it, and seeing it for 100 days into your subconscious mind. And then all of a sudden, you're going to notice that, oh, wow, you know what, I'm feeling a little bit better about myself. Mm-hmm. So we can use words, we can use emotions, we can use visual aids, we can use a variety of different methodologies to take something that isn't true or real right now, and we can impress it into our subconscious mind and start fertilizing that seed. And it'll start to grow some roots, and it'll start to connect to other networks in your brain. And then all of a sudden, you'll start having more positive thoughts around, hey, I do deserve this. Hey, I do want this. Hey, I do have a little bit more confidence. So we can start with things that are as simple as affirmations, like looking in the mirror and saying, I love you. And even if you don't believe it initially, say it for 100 days. I promise you, you will start to feel like, well, you know what? I love you. At least you're doing this. I love you. You know what? You're really kind to animals. You know, I love you. You're really a sweet person. You're really a caring person.
So, John, let me bump you. I apologize for doing that.
Go ahead.
But, okay, so
I love it.
Let me give you a real world, sample-sized example. Okay,
Sure.
We have a community set up, and there's I don't know, like 800 or 900 people in the community, and we have this section where we do this, daily breathing exercise that we do for a month. And what I've found after running the challenge for, a couple times now is that people get to the middle point or even maybe a third of the way through, and the novelty of it wears off. And it just becomes arduous and taxing to do. It's the simplest thing ever. You take 3 minutes, it takes 2 minutes to do this exercise. You're just breathing. But, there's something about I don't know, can you clarify, please, why that might be a wall that people are hitting?
So what happens is when we repeat something too often, the novelty wears out. And our brain loves novelty. Our brain loves challenge. In all of the brain training programs that I've designed for professional athletes, for corporations, for individuals, for clients all over the world, every week we switch it up. So we give them something to do for a week that's repetitive for 7 days, and then we go, okay, let's level it to something different, similar but different. So now they're learning something new. Now they can get excited about something new. Now it's novel. Now it's fun. And so when we can switch it up, it's okay to breathe, let's say for 30 straight days for 3 minutes each day. But if it were me, I'd say we're going to breathe for 3 minutes for week 1. For week 2, we're going to do a different breathing exercises, and here's the benefit of that one. For week 3, here's a different one, and here's the benefit of that one. For week 4, here's the benefit of that one. And collectively, when you put it all together, here is the big prize. So now you've developed self-discipline. Now you've upgraded your abilities, blah, 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 blah. And so when people get bored, people check out. Mm-hmm. And that's when we say when people get bored, when brains get bored, brains check out. And so our job as the leaders, the instructors, is to keep people engaged. right? It's our job to keep people engaged, and it's our job to understand how their brains function. It's our job to do that. And so when we start to mix and match things, when we cause engagement, fun, experiences, etc., then we can get people more committed to the outcome.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's an interesting process because there's so many different layers, like the brain is almost like an onion, and each time you sort of, peel off a layer, there's another layer that you kind of have to address or, establish some sort of rapport with. And I mean, I love your analogy of the diving boards and this sort of set of fear, and that fear being a sort of constant, and
it is a constant.
It as a survival mechanism.
Correct.
And it makes sense. It fits in the larger perspective of things. So, let's talk about gratitude, because this was a big part of your book and something that I believe in a lot. I mean, I do my best to practice this every day. So let's talk about how important, what's going on neurologically when we add gratitude to all this whole process.
Sure. So, whenever we think of, a person, a place, a thing that we're grateful for, the first thing that's happening is we're activating the dopamine neurotransmitters in our brain. So the dopamine neurotransmitters in our brain causes us to feel good. When we feel good, we're happy. When we're happy, guess what we do? We're really good with other people, with pets, with things that we want to do. So whenever we're talking about gratitude, the neural circuitry of gratitude is said to be connected to the neural circuitry of your spiritual self, the higher functioning part of who you are. And so when we are in gratitude of life, of breathing, of waking up, of friends, brothers, sisters, co-workers, an event that took place, the sunshine, the clouds, the air that we can breathe, the oxygen and nitrogen and carbon and the other elements in air. We are activating dopamine. We're activating serotonin. If we share it with somebody else, then we're activating oxytocin, the bonding neurochemical in our brain. And so when we feel good, guess what we do? We share that goodness with others, whether it's in a smile, in an act of kindness. We are motivated. We want to achieve more. We want to become more. We want to have more. And that is really, one of the best things that you can do. We want to do more things that make us feel good. Mm-hmm. And we want to do less of what makes us feel bad. We move away from things that are make us feel bad. We move towards things that make us feel good. So why not start and end every day in gratitude? Every morning when you wake up, there are people that didn't.
Sure.
Right? Every day that you put your feet on the ground, somebody didn't. And so why not start with, holy shit, I'm alive. Wow, thank you.
Right.
Right? And so let's start off with gratitude. And then at the end of the day, what are you grateful for the day? What worked? What lessons did you learn from the things that didn't? What can you be grateful for, if you wake up tomorrow? So there's always something to be grateful for. And what happens is everybody knows this, and in that, we are all made up of energy, and all this energy is interconnected, even though we may not see it because we have these 100 trillion cells that are coalesced into the sentient being called a human with a name and a body, right? That's we call as you. Mm-hmm. Whenever we are in this state of gratitude, we are affecting this quantum field that we are all in and a part of. So when we're in a state of gratitude and we have activated 100 trillion cells in our body that feel the oscillation and the vibration of the neurochemistry of gratitude, we're actually sending a ripple effect into the field. Like when you drop a rock in a pond, it doesn't stop where the rock is dropped. There is a ripple effect across the pond. And that's also known as the butterfly effect. And so when we are in a state of gratitude, yes, we feel good and we're that rock, but other people can feel things even when words aren't spoken. And so if we are in this quantum field of energy and we can augment the vibrational essence of who we are just with gratitude, we're not the only ones who benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's so resounding. I love that so much. And I love how you sort of teased the spiritual aspect of this, because that, that's a big part of my life. And I think the crowd of people who listen to HXP, I mean, it's a big part of their lives as well. So, let's go there. Let's go a little bit deeper on that if we can. Let's talk about that connection to our spiritual selves, and I mean, are you someone who believes in, destiny or fate?
Uncertain. I believe in universal intelligence, and everything happens and unfolding exactly how it should.
Mm-hmm.
And that you and I, and our greatest gift is choice.
Okay.
So I know that there's order in the universe, and I also know that there's randomness in the universe. And so I've had way too many experiences to prove otherwise for me. Now, when we talk about, the spiritual intelligence, when I look outside and I sit on my deck and I look at the ocean and I sometimes can see the moon, out and the sun out, and I'm on planet Earth and we are spinning at dizzying speeds around our own axis once every 24 hours and around the sun once every 365 days as the Milky Way galaxy is traveling across space and time at 70,000 miles per hour, as the other planets, are moving around this sun as well. I can't help but think that there's this unimaginable intelligence that makes it all work in perfect order and harmony. And that intelligence is in me because it created me. So no differently than, when you go to the ocean, if you took a bucket of water out of the ocean, you took it 5,000 miles inland, what you have is some of the ocean water.
Sure.
And so if this intelligence, my mother's egg and my father's sperm, vibrating packets of energy called quanta, came together, and through the law of transmutation of energy and gestation, I was created, and within me is all of the, the intelligence since the beginning of time. We're all pretty spiritual. That intelligence is within us. And the more I can remember that not only is it within me and within you, it is you. It is me. What you call it, I don't care. Water in English is water. In French, it's l'eau. In Hebrew, it's mayim. In Japanese, it's a different name, but it's the same thing. So the name is really irrelevant. What makes it all work, we have somehow evolved to be the most advanced physical representation of this spiritual intelligence that we're aware of right now. And so why not honor and love and respect yourself, knowing that's what you are, and that's what every human being is, and every plant and animal is. It was created from the source that does it all.
Yeah, I mean, how could anything else be true? And I think if you study quantum physics, I mean, time and time again, this is being proven true. That everything is linked, everything is connected, and if you really examine this, it does, start to fit the picture of, what we're talking about today. And, I want to talk about, if we have time, John, if we could talk about, sometimes it feels like we're, here to learn a specific lesson, and maybe those lessons evolve and change through our lives, right? So, what if we are responding to those lessons in different ways? And how can we learn to adapt to that, possible fear response when those lessons in our lives come up? Does that make sense?
I'm a little confused, so I don't understand.
I'm
fully.
saying that, let's say that there's something that life is trying to teach you, a next level, a part of your growth that you're trying to level up. And that part of your growth is it's creating a fear response in you.
Sure. Okay. Got it. So I believe and have this, philosophy, and I've written about this in my other books, that spirit is always for fuller expression and expansion of itself. So if spirit is looking to expand and express itself to and through us, and we have emotions as part of our physical body, and we have mental faculties, and we have a body with, bones and tissues and organs, then if our physical body and our mindset and our emotions are in the way of our spiritual growth, there is conflict, there is fear. And when we get aligned between our spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical, then we have coherence and harmony. So I call that the SEMP model, S-E-M-P.
Okay.
Many people are operating life only at the physical level and at the emotional level. And they are forgetting that they are spiritual, they have emotions, they have mental faculties, and they have a body. So they have the order wrong, in my humble opinion. What if you started operating from a spiritual perspective? That there are no accidents in the universe. Randomness, yes, but no accidents. Coincidences only mean when two angles coincide. So everything that's happening, is unfolding as it should. And so there are going to be plenty of opportunities for lessons. And the meaning that we give those lessons are going to determine how we feel about them. Mm-hmm. Right? So now we're learning how to be aware of the meanings that I'm giving things. And so when you ask somebody who's highly successful, what does fear mean to you? Most highly successful people will tell you it's just feedback. It's just something that I didn't think the right way, or I didn't do the right things, but it's not who I am. Mm-hmm. People who haven't had personal development training think that failure is something that is part of their identity, that there's something wrong with them. And so when we're talking about lessons, usually nature gives you a test first and then the lesson afterwards. So Mother Nature gives tests first and then the lessons. Now, if you are somebody who likes to study and read and learn from whether it's books or great YouTube channels like this one, or other different means of dissemination of information, knowledge, skills, awareness, sure, then you're going to go, okay, wow, I have developed a higher level of skill. When I teach my students, and I'm not talking about in school, I have students who share or come into our programs. I say, listen, what level do you want to play the game of life? Do you want to play the level at the kindergarten level, at the grade school level, high school level, university level, pro level? Do you want to make the all-star team? Do you want to make the Hall of Fame? Those are your levels of the game. Right? So if you want to play the game, at a low level, you are going to be in a lot of pain and discomfort, and you're not going to achieve very much. Mm-hmm. But if you want to level up your skills, your knowledge, your awareness, it's going to take a lot of effort, and you are going to fail a lot. Get used to it. Right. That's how you learn. Yeah. You don't become a world famous athlete, musician, CEO, entrepreneur without learning these mental and emotional and physical lessons. Now, you can shortcut some of the lessons with books and with videos and with coaching and mentors and of course, experience. And so, but you first have to determine, like, what level do you want to play this game at? And we have the health game, the wealth game, relationship game, career game, business game, charity game, spiritual game. Like, how well do you want to play the game? How good do you want to get? And then, are you committed to getting that good, or are you only committed if it's really easy? Right? And this is where you have to build your tenacity and resolve muscle. This is where you've got to build your resourcefulness muscle. This is where you've got to build you've got to leave your quit muscle somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. John, I love it. We're so over time, man. Not that we had a time limit, but I want to, pay respect to how much time we set for this interview, and everyone's kind of like, no, don't end the interview yet. Keep going. So, if we could just wrap this all together, we kind of started at the microcosm, and then we started to evolve into this spiritual connection to our purpose of here in the game of life. So if you had to wrap this together for maybe someone who is struggling with a fear or goal in their life that they just haven't been able to tackle yet, if you're talking to that person, what do you say to them?
Well, first I'll say to them, you're going to be okay. The first part is to acknowledge that I have these disempowering emotions that are not serving me. And I'm now committed to learning how to manage my emotions better. One of the things that, if I may, I'm going to ask you for permission, if I can share something about my new book that I did that's different than most books.
Please.
A lot of people, I've got 2 New York Times best-selling books. I've got my new book, Innercise. And what I've discovered is when I've written how-to books, people read them, it's like, oh, wow, this is great, but they don't follow through to action. So what I did with this book, with Innercise, is not only did I tell people, here's what's going on, here's what to do about it, but when people purchase my book on Amazon, I'm going to give them 8 brain training audios where I will coach them. They're free. They're worth $200, where they can practice with me awareness, managing emotions, confidence, focus. And what I've done, instead of just selling somebody a book and giving them a great book, is start to practice with me as your mental and emotional and focus coach in your head for the next 30, 60, 90 days. All you got to do is buy the book if you want for, I think it's $14 on Amazon, and then download the audios for free and start to practice so you have more confidence and more self-control and more awareness and more resolve and tenacity. And so listening to somebody like me or anybody else talk or watching them, it's really a great first start. But you have to move from awareness and hope and prayer, and this sounds great, to you've got to take action to upgrade your knowledge and skills and abilities. And nothing beats that than practicing something that you want to get better at.
For sure. John, I really appreciate your presence and, going over time a little bit here and, all the work that you've done. It seems like you've, really done your homework and, you've certainly maintained a level of success and that is resoundingly educational for, people who are learning from your work. So, where can people find your website, Where can people, you said Amazon, the book is available there. What's your website?
Sure. For the book, I recommend people go and read about it at ignitemybrain.com. And then they can go to Amazon, buy the book, and then come and get all the bonuses there. There's a whole bunch of videos that I give them as bonuses and audios I'm going to give them as bonuses. So ignitemybrain.com to find out more information about the book, and then go and get it on Amazon. Number 2 is I'm all over social media. So I have an Instagram following at John Assaraf and a Twitter following at John Assaraf.
Okay.
And then every Tuesday I do a Facebook Live training on my Facebook fan page.
Okay.
And so they can find me on social media, and I've got websites as well for myneurogym.com and johnassaraf.com. But let's start with a few of them. If we give them more than 3, they'll probably get a little confused.
So what's the main one to get to? If we're just going to give them one, is it myneurogym.com?
Myneurogym.com. Yeah.
Perfect.
Myneurogym.com is the best one.
All right, Sean. If you'll hang tight for me, let me just do this close. And guys, wow. What an episode. The book is called Innercise, The New Science to Unlock Your Brain's Hidden Power. My guest, John Assaraf. And guys, that's going to do it here at HXP. We will certainly be back next week for another live broadcast. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, click subscribe, click the like button if you want to. One other thing, if you're listening to this via podcast, please get over to iTunes, leave us a review, positive or negative, whatever you think about the show. It really helps us stay relevant. One of the most common things that I hear from people is, why hadn't they discovered our show sooner? So I thank all of you for listening. Without you guys, this would not be possible whatsoever. So if you've made it to this point at the end, thank you so very much. We will be back next week.